Welcome back to Play the Game with Steve, and today we are going to talk about Colossus understanding the mechanics. So in this series, we're going to go over Colossus's signature cards, his Nemesis set. We're going to talk about what kind of strategies and synergies, how best to play the hero, what kind of tactics you can use to really drive this character to the next level of efficiency. So if you are new to the channel, please subscribe. If you like this content, make sure you take a look at some of the previous videos. There is an understanding the mechanics for pretty much every character that has come out so far. So without further ado, let's talk about Colossus. Pyotr Rasputin. All right, so Pyotr is a mutant. He has a setup ability. He has his hand size of 6 and 14 hit points. His trait is a mutant. He has a recovery of 4. And then his setup, which happens after you mulligan, you will search your deck for a copy of Organic Steel and add it to your hand. He has a Aspiring Artist, which is a response. After you change to this form, you shuffle a Colossus card from your discard pile into your deck. Now, this ability, I've spoken this before on many occasions. Any character that has access to any type of recursion is extremely powerful. Why? Because you can go get your best card. So you can use it as a resource if you don't need it right now. And then you can, when you flip down to Alter Ego, you can get that card back into your deck. So this is very efficient. And we're going to take a look at some of the signature cards that are very important for Peter Colossus to recycle. All right, here we go. Now, as Colossus, he has a thwart of 1, an attack of 2, a defense of 2. He is an X-Men traded. And Colossus can have 1 additional tough status card. His natural ability, which is Steel Skin, is a response. And after you change to this form, you give Colossus a tough status card. And his hand size in hero form is only 4. So again, so you can see that you want Colossus to have that tough status card, which means when you go down to Alter Ego and then flip back to hero form, you can always get that bonus or that tough status card that you need to really play off of his mechanics. All right, let's take a look at some of those signature cards here. So first of all, we have Peter's Studio. That is a 1-cost support. It's a location, an Alter Ego action. You can exhaust the studio. You discard cards from your deck until you discard a Colossus card and add card to your hand. Now, this is a priority number 2 card, I would say. It is not a high priority card in the beginning unless you are looking for something specific. The reason why is depending on how you're playing Colossus, whatever aspect you are, you only have 15 cards in your kit. So if you're discarding cards rapidly to try to find a specific card, you are going to deck out faster, which is going to lead to more encounter cards, which means you might lose some of the synergies within the aspect that you are trying to play. I do recommend putting this card down when you have it and just let it be until you are looking for something specific. And we're going to take a look at some of those cards that you'll want to see and kind of dig for once we get there. But I think this card is very good once you've decked out once and then you know what you're looking for. All right, let's think about Iron Will. So Iron Will is a 2-cost upgrade, superpower. Colossus gets +1 thwart, but that is not the best about this card. Hero response: after a tough status card is discarded from Colossus, draw a card. So a little bit of rules questions here. If there is a card effect that says discard your all status cards, all tough status cards, Piercing is one of those things. So Piercing deals damage by discarding any tough status card that would be on a character. So this with Piercing would trigger even twice. That's pretty cool if you have 2 tough status cards. So that Iron Will is extremely important. It also helps you get a bigger hand size. So you want to kind of use the tough as a resource. So that very good. Then we have Titanium Muscle, which is a 2nd upgrade. And this card says he gets +1 attack. It is another superpower. And then Hero Resource, you can exhaust this card to generate a physical resource for each tough status card on Colossus. So this is the first double resource on a character, but again, it is very conditional on him having multiple tough status cards for it to really start paying off. If he has one, it's 2 for 1, which is really good. If you have 2 tough status cards, it's 2 for 2, which means it's basically a free card. It's very, very strong. I would definitely say if you have this, if you have the choice between Titanium Muscles and Iron Will in your opening hand, and you can only play one of them, Iron Will should definitely be your main bet, because getting the mechanics to work with Colossus in the beginning might be a little harder. So Iron will definitely help you accelerate that process. And remember, when you flip down, you can always bring back the Titanium Muscles and shuffle it back into your deck. All right, now let's take a look at some of the other cards that will synergize really well. He's got 2 copies of Organic Steel. This is another 2-cost upgrade. The great thing about Organic Steel is you actually get to go and search for one after you mulligan. So you're definitely going to have a 7-card hand when you start, especially if you have one of those. Now, be careful if you pitch one, you discard one, and then you have one in your opening hand in your first 6 cards, and you get the second one. Unfortunately, you will not be able to go search the one in your discard pile because it's only searching in your deck. And that is for the setup ability. But this Organic Steel says uses 2 steel counters on it. So here, response: after a tough status card is discarded from Colossus, you can exhaust this card and remove a steel counter from it. You give Colossus a tough status card. Now, another quick way to understand this, which is very fun, is if the villain has piercing, it would discard the tough status card that is there. Now, in response to the villain discarding your tough status card with the piercing, you could always exhaust that Organic Steel, place another tough status card on Colossus, and then the piercing has already done his effect, so Colossus will still be tough and take no damage, even if the villain has piercing. So this is one of those combos that you can use very, very efficiently. Even against a villain that has piercing, these Organic Steels can really help Colossus stay strong and keep those 14 hit points. All right, now we're going to take a look at some of his events, and some of these events that are extremely powerful. And the one I think is the most misused, or the one that is not used enough, and this is where I believe Colossus has 99% of his strength is this card called Armor Up. He has 2 copies of this card, and it says Alter Ego Interrupt. So which means you can only play this card while you are an Alter Ego. It says superpower at a cost of 0. When the villain activates, change to hero form. So this means that you can start your turn in Alter Ego. The villain goes to scheme, but you go, wait, I'm going to use my Armor Up. I'm going to flip up, get my tough status card, and then the villain, instead of scheming, will attack you, which will cause you to lose your tough. But again, once you have everything else set up, it doesn't matter. But this allows you to go to Alter Ego, shuffle some of your best cards back in, and also flip and not worrying about the villain scheming and then losing the game due to, the villain scheming. So these Armor Ups should be your priority number 1. These are cards that you want to keep. If you are an Alter Ego and like on turn 1, you have one in your hand, keep this card as, don't spend it as a resource. Keep that card and then build whatever you can. Stay in Alter Ego to have, again, the bigger hand size, and then just use that Armor Up when the villain turn begins, when he wants to activate. Flip to Colossus. You already have your Organic Steel. You already have a couple of other pieces in play. And then what you can do is on the second turn, you can go flip back down, and then you shuffle this back into your deck. This, when you are building Colossus, this is your go-to card. This is the card that is going to help you, especially in solo, build Colossus efficiently and as fast as possible. So Armor Up is your go-to card. Now, let's keep going. Bulletproof Protector is the other zero cost event in his deck. He is a superpower hero action. You can discard a tough status card from your hero, and then you get to choose. You either give your hero 2 tough status cards, or you get to ready your hero. Now, depending where you are in the game, this card for me, it is a more of a late game card. But how I like to use it, I always love to use this card if I have, let's say, Iron Will, which draws me a card, or the Titanium Muscles that now can give me, off of my 1 tough, now I can get a double tough right off the bat. So this is a mid-game card. So Bulletproof Protector is not your, if you have these in your opening hand, for me, 90% of the times, I'm going to just pitch it because I'm not there yet. Unless I have Titanium Muscles or Organic Steel, this is a card that is better when you are in the later game once you have your Colossus cards set up. All right, same thing for his third card that costs 0, his Made of Rage. Now, this card is phenomenal. When you make a basic attack, you discard a tough status card from your hero. Your attack gains +6 for that attack and overkill. So this is, again, a very, very strong card. So Colossus, when he can deal 8 damage with overkill. That is super strong. We don't, and for a 0 cost, it's just bonkers. But you do have to use one of your tough status cards. So again, this is more, again, of a mid to late game card. Unless you are playing aggressive and you're just trying to destroy the villain as fast as you can, then this card for me is, again, a mid to late game. Once you have some board control and then you are going in for the kill, most likely I should recommend you guys play this on your second deck pass, unless there is a big minion, there's a problem on the table, and you need to use it, then definitely use it. But again, this is not a card I would recycle from your deck until you actually need to go in for the kill for the damage. And then finally, his last event is called Steel Fist, and he has 3 copies of this event. This is a hero action attack. You deal 5 damage to an enemy, and then you may discard a tough status card from your hero. And if you do, you stun and confuse that enemy. So now there's a couple of controversies on this because it is a hero attack, and you need to deal the 5 damage. This is where sometimes the ruling on FFG's cards just becomes a little wonky. So technically, everything that is to the left of the arrow needs to happen for everything on the right of the arrow to happen. So let's say the villain is tough and you try to play a Steel Fist. Since you don't deal the 5 damage, you cannot discard a tough status card to be able to stun and confuse. So this is a little weird for me, and then you can choose how to play this how you want. For me, I think it's a little wonky. But again, if you're a stickler for the rules, go by the rules. If not, the 5 damage to an enemy and discard a tough status card from your hero to stun and confuse. So, which means if you only deal 4 damage to an enemy, technically you can't do this. So this is why for me it's a little weird the way it is done. It should have been just discard, deal 5 damage to an enemy. They just wanted the damage to be there, which I understand. So the reasoning behind this is we want the hero to be able to do the 5 damage regardless of if the tough status card is there. It's just the way it is worded with the rulings, the way they are, it just makes this a little bit more confusing than it should be. All right, so that is that. So again, so you can always discard the stun and confuse. Now this is where the trap lies for the newer players. Everyone sees the stun and confuse, and then they're like, oh wow, I'm just going to stun and confuse the villain. It is, again, a superb card. This is, again, a mid-range card. If you want, the tempo is there. The 5 damage is great. But again, I really, really recommend the armor ups priority. And then once you are in damage mode or you have controlled, then focus on those Steel Fists to really push in the nail in the coffin of the villain. So I think this is where people kind of fall into the trap. Do the Colossus things, and then once you have your engine set up and you have your everything down, then recycle these cards. Of course, this is where you want to start recycling. These are the cards you want to start recycling. Once you are on your second turn with Peter's Studio, you want to search for these types of cards here. So, for me. All right, and then finally, his signature ally is Miss Shadowcat. She's a 3-cost ally with 3 health, 2 thwart, 2 attack, both with 1 consequence damage. She is also an X-Men, and Shadowcat ignores the guard and patrol keywords and any crisis icons in play. So she is definitely a very, very powerful ally that can just go through anything. Don't worry about guards. Don't worry about crisis. This young lady can get her done. So that's it for his signature cards. Now let's take a look at his obligation and his nemesis set. So homesick is his obligation. You give it to the Peter Rasputin planner. You can flip to alter ego form. And then you choose, you exhaust Peter and remove this homesick from the game, which is, the typical one. Or you discard this card and each tough status card from your identity. And if you discarded no tough status cards, this card will gain surge. So if you were already exhausted by exhaustion or something else, it made you exhaust, and you get the homesick and you can't get rid of it, hopefully you have a tough, or else it's going to surge. So again, this is not too bad as an obligation. His nemesis set, it is the Juggernaut. So the Juggernaut comes in, he has 1 scheme, 4 attack, he's a brute elite with 8 hit points, he is stalwart and tough, and he is a big boy. All right, he has a little star for a boost icon that says if this activation is an attack, that attack gains overkill and piercing. Very, very, very dangerous against Colossus. Again, it's a good nemesis. The fact that he's tough is great because you could just, made of rage him and just go through him if he didn't have the tough. So the fact that the tough is there, kind of slows down. It's not just like an easy, oh, I'm just going to do this attack and then he's out of the way. So this is a good nemesis for our friend Colossus. His side scheme that comes out is Rampaging Juggernaut. And then when revealed, you discard each tough status card from each friendly character. You place 2 threat here for each tough status card discarded this way. This is a boost icon, so every card that is turned face up, we will add a boost. So this is a 3-cost boost. So if, let's say this card was in play and there's a 3 boost, it becomes a 4 boost. Very good if you are playing with certain other characters. Then he has a couple of attachments called Unstoppable. Attached to an enemy with the highest printed attack without a copy of Unstoppable attached. Otherwise, this card will gain surge. Force Interrupt. When the attached enemy attacks, the attack gains overkill and piercing. And at the end of this attack, you discard Unstoppable. So again, this is very good. Again, goes against the synergy that you're trying to build with Colossus. So for me, as a nemesis set, this is super, super good. Very flavorful and very on point, because a nemesis should be very counterintuitive to what your hero strategy is. And finally, his only treachery is Slammed. When revealed, you are stunned, and if you're already stunned, you take 2 damage. And as a boost card, you will do this effect and also get the boost of 2. So you might as well just get this one as a treachery card instead of a boost if you can. All right, so now let's take a look at some of the synergies and some of the other things that you might want to play as Colossus. Now, personally, Colossus came in the protection aspect, if I remember correctly, but definitely not his best aspect. His best aspect, by far, is justice. But why justice? Because it allows you all that control and all that threat mitigation that you need to set yourself up for success. So if you think Colossus has a little bit of trouble, let's take a look at what he can do in justice. All right, now let's start exploring some of the best cards to use in what I believe is his best aspect, which I believe is still justice. Now, the reason why I talk about justice, normally it's not my favorite aspect personally. I think it's a little bit on the easy side, especially for solo. But with Colossus, it just fits. It's just perfect. The reason why, because he really does need to go to alter ego to recycle his tough status cards. So justice is just like a perfect blend of him being able to flip and still remain in complete control. Now, some of the best cards to really help with that, because Colossus has that tough, that he can use and expend. That means he's always going to be ready. He should normally always be ready to attack or to thwart, depending on the situation. So some of the best cards I would recommend for upgrades would be a Heroic Intuition, because once you have your Iron Will, he can go up to a 3 thwart, which is just phenomenal. Then we have his signature ally, Shadowcat, that if you equip Shadowcat with a mission training, now she thwarts for 3, ignores crisis. Again, very, very powerful. So Colossus can focus on attacking, and then you can use Shadowcat. That also gives her +2 hit points. So she's got the 3, so it would be 3 threat and 5 times. So she can remove up to 15 threat before she needs to go away. So this is just ultimate control just with that one ally. And then again, because Colossus will be attacking often, putting that interrogation room is a very easy way to deck thin, and also make sure that your Colossus is punching out bad guys and minions, and then always removing some extra threat like that. Now, other combinations, if you have the mission training, the command center, because if you're going to be using Shadowcat as a thwarter, then the command center is definitely your go-to card. Another cheap card that came from the Wolverine pack. And it says, after an ally thwarts and defeats a side scheme, exhaust command center, deal 2 damage to an enemy. Again, now you're combining the best of both worlds, threat removal, but you're like, Steve, it's only for side schemes. That's why you include 1 or 2 one ways or another in your deck, and then you can kind of combo off. Not only are you drawing cards, you're getting a side scheme out and allowing your combo pieces to kind of trigger together and really bring together that kind of synergy. Now, the other synergies in events that I would recommend is Lay Down the Law. Again, because once you armor up, you can also just go and play Lay Down the Law. Another good upgrade would probably be the Sense of Justice if you are going to be using this strategy, because then you can just use Sense of Justice as the resource you need that generates the mental to pay for these Lay Down the Laws. So that just makes it, again, very, very synergistic. And then here's my favorite card, especially when I'm playing Nebula. And then Nebula has like 15 evasion counters, and then is going to be putting like 40 threat on the main scheme. Well, I'm just going to use Great Responsibility, and instead of putting all the threat, 9 threat on the main scheme, I'm just going to lose a tough status card, and then I'll use my I forget the name of them, my organic steel, and just re-give myself a tough status card and maybe even draw a card if I have my Iron Will out. So Great Responsibility with Colossus is another fantastic way in a multiplayer setting to utilize Colossus Injustice, which makes it just phenomenal. Now let's take a look at these are just like, for me, my top cards to include. I'm going to take a look also at aggression and protection and leadership and also basics. So here's aggressive now. What are some of the best cards to utilize with our friend Colossus? Let's take a look at Colossus in aggression. Some of my favorite cards with Colossus in aggression in the upgrades. First one would be the Brute Strength. Again, if I'm going to combo this, Brute Strength, I think is a very key card with Colossus, especially if you're playing a lot of the new X-Men villains have a lot of tough status cards. So combining the Maid of Rage with the Brute Forces can really, really generate a lot of power here. The best thing about it is you can actually keep this, and like, if I don't need to attack, I can always use Colossus to thwart, and then just keep this for when I actually have my Maid of Rage to maximize the efficiency. I really enjoy this combination. Again, giving a +7 overkill and piercing to an attack for the cost of 1 is extremely, extremely efficient. Obviously, we can always upgrade his attack to up to 4 when he has his titanium muscles. Martial Prowess is another great one to have when he only has those 3 attack events with the Steel Fist. But again, if you need an extra resource, that can really help out. And one of the cards, again, if you're playing in aggression and you're afraid that you won't be able to remove enough threat, Gatekeepers for me is a very, very good card. Again, can really combo well with the Maid of Rage, putting a Gatekeeper, all these low-cost cards here that can really synergize. And this allows you to control threat and deal with minions at the same time. You give the minion an extra 2 health, but for that 2 health you're giving him, you are also removing 4 threat from the main scheme once that minion is defeated. For me, it's a very good exchange and makes these cards very efficient if you want to play a red Colossus deck. As for events, some of the best events to play, again, if you have the martial prowess and the titanium muscles, this is basically a free card that will give you the kicker of drawing an extra card. So it's basically a 1-for-1 once you are set up. And it also stuns the enemy. So it gives, again, some extra stun effects for the Steel Fist, and allows you to not worry about the villain attacking you and losing your Tufts. So this can also combo well with Colossus's synergies. The other one, again, if you want to use a very high aggressive synergy, using the toe-to-toe, having the villain attack you, you're tough. You're not taking any damage. So you're going to get rid of that tough, but you're going to deal 5 damage for just taking your tough away. I think the price is pretty good. And then obviously, because we're going to be flipping down and up again, using those surprise attacks, again, same time, use the armor up, use the surprise attack. If you have your titanium muscles or martial prowess, I think the combination is just right. I don't talk about a lot of allies. Normally, these are like more the cards I like to put, but because Colossus has a really sweet team-up card, the Wolverine ally to include in his deck is 100% a must. That, with an attack training, Wolverine becomes a 6 health ally with 4 attack and piercing that can heal, which is just fantastic. And then it allows you also to play the fastball special. I didn't really want to talk about basic cards yet, but I think the situation calls for it, because you can only play the fastball special if you're in solo, if you have the Wolverine ally. If you're playing multiplayer and somebody's playing Wolverine, then obviously it's a little easier. But making Wolverine and this, if you're all set up, that is a 1 cost for 8 damage with overkill and piercing. Very, very efficient in a very aggressive strategy. Now let's get a look at how you can do in protection. If we're taking a look at Colossus with the protection aspect, some of the best cards we can add to him is cards like Dauntless. Because Colossus is tough, he'll rarely take damage. So having that free retaliate for a cost of 1 is just super efficient. Again, unflappable if you do decide to use some of these, if you just decide to defend or use any type of defense card to try to, save your tough. I think unflappable is just an easy card draw. Same thing for electrostatic armor if you're going to be playing into the perfect defense strategy, which is very, very easy to do with Colossus. Then again, one card that I do love with Colossus, and think that goes underlooked depending on the scenario you're playing, is cards like Pin Down. So adding a few of those in your deck means you can just ignore these little minions that are in front of you, and then just keep them there, and then they won't remove your tough, which is what you don't want to happen with Colossus. You want to be able to keep your toughs as much as possible. So if you're going to be playing into that kind of strategy, well, either in solo or multiplayer, what's cool is cards like Never Back Down. Because you're tough, you might actually get to keep your tough because you can get a defense of up to 4. You might even go up to 5 if you do decide to play that Armored Vest, which is an easy card that we could have included in here as well. But like the Never Back Down and the Desperate Defense will allow you, if you have that Maid of Rage turn, then you can just like, okay, well, I'm going to exhaust and I have my Maid of Rage, so I'll be ready. I'll still have my tough, and then I'll be able to Maid of Rage. The Never Back Down is just phenomenal because you can just have a perfect defense all the time, take no damage because you're tough, and always stun the villain. So again, you can kind of really synergize with that, and that can help with other people. And if you're playing into those kind of strategies, the Nerves of Steel and then the Flow Like Water are just easy includes in that deck. And again, if you want to keep going with that green strategy, cards like Nightcrawler and Polaris These are your go-to allies that 100% should be in your deck. Nightcrawler is just an easy replay value, which will mean that you can just keep your toughs on Colossus. So if you have that titanium muscle, basically you just need to spend a lightning resource, and then you bounce Nightcrawler, take no damage, and then you keep your tough status cards as well. So that's very, very good. Polaris comes in, can apply an extra tough status card on Colossus. So again, a very easy way to play Colossus. Like, keep your toughs, don't really flip down to alter ego. But remember, if you do that, you will only have that hand size of 4. So some of these cards might be a little bit tougher to play. So you'll have to be a little bit smarter on when to start leaning into that strategy more. So maybe take a turn or two that you want to stay and flip down, and then kind of just go from there once that is built. So that is it for a protection strategy. In leadership, unfortunately, leadership doesn't have a lot of sexy things to go with Colossus. Obviously, you can definitely try to use the Moxies to increase his strength when he flips up. Because he can go to alter ego a lot, using the med lab to recur some of these allies. Some of the top allies I would say to go in for is allies like Colossus. No, he's not an X-Man, but at least he can recur some of the events, or find you some of the events that you need. And then like cards like Black Knight as well, to be able to get rid of his nemesis with the toughs and stuff like that. So as unfortunately, leadership with the Colossus, there's not a lot of sexy combinations that make it that would make him that much more interesting than any other character in the game that any other character can do with leadership. You know, just spam allies and just have some fun with that. All right, let's go take a look at some of the basic cards that really fit in his kit. All right, and then finally, some of the basic cards that you might want to include in that deck. Depending what you're playing and the cost curve of your deck, adding a few meditations in your deck might not be a bad idea, especially if you're going to be running a lot of support cards and stuff like that to increase his hand size, or just putting some allies in play for cheap. I think meditation makes a lot of sense with Colossus, especially that he does go down to alter ego quite a lot. Other events like limitless stamina, because he has the 14 health, just to get an extra ready, is always good. Cards like Shadow and Steel, obviously that team up card with Shadowcat is must include. And then at least a copy of this in your deck is never too much, because you will find yourself sometimes that you might lose that tough status card, and then it might slow down and just hinder everything you're trying to do. So having options to give your character another tough status card might just help out and for you to do other good things. Cards like Moira Taggart for support cards and the X-Jet are definitely cards you should put in. Again, because you want to go to alter ego and hero form a lot, Moira McTaggart is a free card draw. So technically, it's almost an Avengers Mansion for 1 that you can use just by flipping up and down from hero to alter ego. It makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the X-Jet only works for a couple things. Cards like Unshakable and Death Focus. Death Focus pays for all of your upgrades. So all of your titanium muscles, iron will, and your organic steels, and it also pays for 3 of your events. So Death Focus, 100% a great card to make sure to include in your deck to reduce the cost of Colossus's cards. And then finally, the ally I would suggest is Professor X. I think he does also come in his kit, so makes a lot of sense. A big thwart of 3, he can ready or confuse. So it just adds to all the synergies in Colossus's deck. So that wraps it up for this episode here on Colossus Understanding the Mechanics. For me, Colossus, one of my favorite X-Men characters. I love the mechanics, love the flip down, flip flop characters. For me, again, Colossus really hit the mark. I was surprised how much I enjoyed him at the beginning. I didn't think I would like him so much, but when I was playing Kitty, I was like, okay, I like Kitty, but Colossus was my like, oh my god, this guy is just too much. So for me, big success. Thank you, FFG, for this incredible mechanics. I can understand why it got a little bit of mixed reviews here in some of the community. If you are one of those people that like to play and just kind of stay in hero form, Colossus is going to struggle a lot more, because if you don't find ways to recycle those tough status cards, you will have trouble. So again, hopefully this video will help you understand a little bit more how Colossus is meant to be played, how to really take advantage of those free tough status cards that his character can give you when you're flipping up. And hopefully this will enhance your experience playing Colossus within the different aspects, except for leadership, because it's leadership, you know. So on that note, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure you stay tuned. All of the other X-Men's will be coming up soon. We're gonna do Shadow Cat next, and yeah, we're gonna keep going like that until they are all done. There's only 8 of them, so is it 8, 2, 4, 6, 8? Yeah, there's only 8 so far, so it shouldn't be too long. All right, so on that note, keep on playing Marvel Champions. Hope you enjoy all of the content here at Play the Game. Make sure to take a look at some of the old videos. If there's any characters you are unfamiliar with and you want a little bit more, there's a whole series on understanding the mechanics in the new player section. Then you can just find and search for any hero, and you'll be able to find like some breakdown strategies, kind of like this, for all of the other characters. There's also deck building videos and stuff like that. So make sure this channel has a little bit of everything for everyone. So on that note, keep on playing Marvel Champions, and remember, just have some fun and play the game. I'll see you next time. Ciao, ciao.